Greetings, my fellow freedomers and sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Beehive State, which is also known as Utah. And today's date, Thursday, September 24th, 2015. Yeah, it's early Thursday morning. And Roy City. Yeah, the moon was out for a while now. It's a bit dark. People are sleeping, so that's why I like to have to do my shows around this time. And everyone's talking about Pope Francis coming to the States. He's gonna be speaking in the state capitol with the House of Representatives and have his own advice. Talk about how things should be in the United States. And furthermore, there were some articles about him not want to meet with congressional servants. Instead, he wants to go hang out with 300 people who are homeless and eat with them. Well, I could tell the people who are actually in good faith may have ate with Pope Francis, but never believe the hype. Not some Lord and Savior whatsoever. And here's a very fine example, which I know some of the articles he talked about before, which is I could say sacrilegious in my view, based on his creed. And this came from the LibertyBeacon.com. It's entitled "Pope Francis Attacks Gun-Owning Christians, Casting Stones." So we can really call this Pope Francis anti-self-defense. So it'll be a few topics, but like I said, it'll probably be short, long. I don't know. I'll just see how the timing is. So, yep, from LibertyBeacon.com. It's entitled "Pope Francis Attacks Gun-Owning Christians, Casting Stones." There'll be a couple articles on this, just to refresh. So, all right, here it is, and I like what it says here: "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." Nice little picture. It's introduction by Mary Carmel from TLB. At the Liberty Beacon. It says here, "We are here, the long-awaited and dreaded visit from Pope Francis. Now he is toting gun control as well as the Marxist one-world government under the guise of climate change. They have geoengineered much of it to make us believe we are the cause of these natural disasters, therefore pressing their UN Agenda 21 and 2030. You gotta think about that. I'll continue on. "Until we have no rights to any of our own resources, property, or our prosperity under capitalism, aka working hard to make a living. This includes global depopulation 90% through their various methods of poisoning us. And has it grown to be a serious issue we must undertake, holding the agencies and NGOs responsible for it immediately. I am no way attacking Catholics, but merely pointing out the Vatican has a long history of oppression through war. They are instrumental in global affairs and government control. Pope Francis seemingly misplaces the Vatican's complicit role in World War II. Yes, he is using the Holocaust and a misguided account of the true driving force of that war, ultimately destroying the people of Eastern Europe. Heads of people, he is a Jesuit, and remembered who backed World War II. Hitler, as well as many other wars for profit, back to the Inquisition, the Vatican. Let us not forget that he had his own Holocaust ongoing in Argentina before he became Pope." And there's some blue links on here too. "He is clearly a danger to the misinformed mainstream news watcher. MSM is owned and scripted by the powers that be, lies for control of the masses and money. Please understand that this man took the Jesuit oath. Please read it." Well, let's just check it out. In a moment. Oh, yeah. Interesting. About the Jesuit oath. It was Jesuit Oath Exposed, and it was done by Seal of Society of Jesus. It's from the Eastern European of Protestant Studies. As it reads here, the following text of the Imperial speaks. Oh yeah, interesting. A lot of footnotes in here as well. My son, now you know what? Yeah, interesting here. And I have read it before. I was in the thing called Know Your Enemy. Talked about the Jesuits, like what they dedicated just to them, to that particular order. So definitely you can read this yourselves. So I'm not gonna really get into it that much, but it's very, I would say, scary. It would also be a good to remember that it was the Catholic Church that helped the Nazi escape from Austria after the war, and this led them to Argentina, then to the U.S. through Operation Paperclip illegally. Do not wonder why we have a fascist police state that is trying to confiscate our guns. The outcome of all this planning. This is old hat. This is old hat to them. It is just another generation of banker wars with the U.S. as well as Europe and many other countries. Recently, their list of destruction. Stay alert, America has been systematically destroyed from within, and he is the last-ditch messenger for the elites. NWO. If you have doubts, go to the UN website and read for yourself. Blatantly print for all to see. And I did talk about how the UN are very pro New World Order, and it talks about the transformation of our world. And it's interesting when we talk about the people, the planet, prosperity, peace, partnership, the declaration, okay, the vision, and these goals and targets, yep, and universal respect, the new agenda, yep, so definitely you can read this yourselves. You just hit those blue links, light aqua blue links, like UN colors, of course. It tells you all about it. Blatantly, you can also research the Georgia Guidestones, the ultimate plans of the elite, etched in stone to eliminate life as we know it globally. And I do recall they want to only have 500 million people living on the planet. So all this white privilege and all this pointing fingers because of the color of their skin, those ingrates could care less about everybody, the human race to be exact. And proceed on here. What a case of the pot calling the kettle back, as he said. Do not put your trust in men. Why? Because he knows exactly why those railroads were not bombed and everything else in Germany was. Most of the innocent people living there. The Allies destroyed Germany with a bombing campaign that was relentless. Churchill did not didn't want competition. It is all a war to keep the UK and US empire. And at that point, who even knew where the country was on the map? Never mind the railroads. The Russian and German deaths were massive. It seems these sinless people at the UN can cast stones from their glass houses, and they think we're going to buy it because the victors always live to write the history. No, it is no wonder why the Rockefeller Foundation so willingly contribute to Western education and the print of textbooks that lied about omitting these facts to all of us. Are we to repeat history and let a Pope, a Hitler, a Stalin, or a Churchill march us blindly into oppression and war for the best interest once more? It seems we were occupied long ago. It is time to wake up. He is spewing the same old nonsense, and enough killing is being done by our puppet government to please these people, and the beat goes on. Note, America has guns. We had no army. We had a militia. We have a had a non-intervention policy on war via our Constitution, and only using militia when our freedom was provoked. Until the Jesuits and bankers infiltrate this country, do not give it away. The Pope seems to forget we did not want to take part in World War II, and meaning the people, and we were supplying Europe with weapons to defend themselves. Where would the Vatican and European Empire be now? Enough blood has been shed in the name of profit that the people never see. Yeah, Mario Carmel did a nice job on that, and they had a photo of a quote by the late John F. Kennedy. It says, "Every citizen must be ready to participate in defense of his country. For that reason, I believe the Second Amendment will always be important." JFK made that statement. And what's interesting, too, was even though JFK was a Roman Catholic, there was a lot of people were a little skeptic when he met the Pope, when he was president. And I saw the footage. He never bowed down to kiss the ring. He shook his hand on his feet, because John F. Kennedy did believe in the separation of church and state. And that's what makes it pretty unique about him. He may have some rough edges, but he had vision that was more authentic, and plus he had a conscience. That's why, in my view, some of his actions, he got assassinated, like, of course, 11,110, executive order, with the Federal Reserve can't manage money anymore. That was just part of it, but it could be a lot. There's a lot more than that. And okay, so interesting here. There's an article below that says, Pope Francis says you're not Christian if you support gun manufacturers. This is from MLN.com. It says here, Pope Francis spoke with a group of young people at a rally, thousands at the end of the first day of his trip to the Italian city of Turin. I think this is old, but we'll just proceed here. Francis started by attacking the right to keep and bear arms, as well as accusing the Allies during World War II on being complicit in the killing of Jews, Christians, and homosexuals. Francis issued his toughest commendation to date of the weapons industry, saying, "If you only trust men, you have lost." He told the young people in a long, rambling talk about war, trust, and politics after putting aside his prepared address. It makes me think of people, managers, businessmen who call themselves Christians and they manufacture weapons. That leads to a bit of distrust, doesn't it? He said to applaud. He also criticized those who invent in weapons industry, gun owners, saying duplicity is the currency of today. They say one thing and do another. Francis also built on comments he has made in the past about events during the First and Second World Wars. He spoke of the tragedy of Shoah, using the Hebrew term for the Holocaust. The great powers had the pictures of the railway lines that brought the trains to the concentration camps like Auschwitz to kill Jews, Christians, homosexuals, everybody. Why didn't they bomb the railway lines? It is surely an upside-down world when the representative of God on earth disparages the right to self-defense and accuses the greatest generation of being complicit in Hitler's genocide and the destruction of Europe and Russia. And here's another one that says here, I'll read this, why not? It came out in June, but I'm going to read this one too, from Amoland, about you're not Christian if you support gun manufacturers. And it's very similar. So it is interesting because he may have some pointers. He always tries to mix it up, or combine or compress that people who are pro self-defense and firearm manufacturers, weapon manufacturers, and he may have some good pointers. However, when it comes to attacking gun-owning Christians, is pretty sacrilege on his rhetoric, because self-defense is legitimate. Okay, even when in the Bibles, Torah, not the Torah, yeah, Bible, the Torah, the Talmud, even in the Satanic Bible, about self-preservation is the highest law. That's even in the book The Might is Right as well. So what gets me, we can look at we could really look at some of the stuff we try to combine about people not owning weapons, and it is very, I would say, very displeasing, and respectfully, I am not surprised, because I've been studying stuff about the Vatican for a good long time, and I'm convinced they're part of that New World Order umbrella. So, and here's the thing we can look at when it comes to self-defense. Hold on here. We'll get this out of the way. And it came from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. And of course, it says here about Part 3, Life in Christ, Section 2 of the Ten Commandments, Chapter 2, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Article 5, the Fifth Commandment, you shall not kill. You've heard it, that it was said of men of old, you shall not kill, and whoever kills shall be liable to judgment. But I say that everyone who is angry with his brother shall be liable to judgment. And they have things on the respect of life, which is understandable. So, and we can just go here, Section 2258. Says here, human life is sacred because from its beginnings it involved the creative action of God, and it remains forever in a special relationship with the Creator, who is its sole end. God alone is the Lord of life from its beginning until its end. No one can under any circumstance claim for himself the right directly to destroy an innocent human being, which is, respectable. But when you go down further, legitimate defense from 2263 to section 2267, here's what he has to say. The legitimate defense of a person's societies is not exception to the prohibition against the murder of the innocent that constitutes intentional killing. The act of self-defense can have a double effect: the preservation of one's own life and the killing of the aggressor. The one is intended, the other is not. Love toward oneself remains a fundamental principle of morality. Therefore, it is legitimate to insist on respect for one's own right to life. Someone who defends his life is not guilty of murder, even if he is forced to deal his aggressor a lethal blow. If a man in self-defense uses more than necessary violence, it will be unlawful. Whereas if he repels forth with moderation, his defense will be lawful. Nor is necessary for salvation that a man omit the act of moderate self-defense to avoid the killing the other man, since one is bound to take more of one's own life than of another's. And I continue here. Legitimate defense can be not only a right, but a grave duty for one who is responsible for the lives of others. Defense of the common good requires that an unjust aggressor be rendered unable to cause harm. For this reason, those who legitimately hold authority also have the right to use arms to repel aggressors against the civil community entrusted to the responsibility. The efforts of a state to curb the spread of behavior harmful to the people's rights to the basic rules of civil society correspond to the requirement of safeguarding the common good. Legitimate public authority has the right and duty to inflict punishment proportionate to the gravity of the offense. Punishment has the primary aim of redressing the disorder introduced by the offense. When it is willingly accepted by the guilty party, it assumes the value of expiation. Punishment then, in addition to defending public order and protect people's safety, has a medical purpose. As far as possible, it must contribute to the correction of the guilty party. And then says here, finally, assuming that the guilty party's identity and responsibility have been fully determined, the traditional teaching of the Church does not exclude recourse to the death penalty. If this is the only possible way of effectively defending human lives against the unjust aggressor. If, however, non-lethal means are sufficient to defend and protect people's safety from the aggressor, authority will limit itself to such means, as these are more in keeping with the concentrated concrete conditions of the common good and more in conformity to the dignity of the human person. Today, in fact, as a consequence of the possibilities which the state has for effectively preventing crime by rendering one who has committed an offense incapable of doing harm, without definitely taking away from him the possibility of redeeming himself, the cases in which the execution of the offender is an absolute necessity are very rare, if not practically non-existent. So, you have to look at everything across the board. And what's interesting, too, you got people who are considered left-wing Christians talking about, oh, we shouldn't be defending, so Pope Francis was right. You know what? I have to disagree with you completely, and I don't really care what you think. I hear some of the same old rhetoric. It's like a broken record player. I'm not saying I'm better than these individuals. Absolutely not. But when you study the history on trusting the government, and plus the police protection myth, you understand where I'm coming from. So this is like a couple of double articles here, but you have to always look at everything across the board. And we know one thing for sure: what the Pope's going to speak about his pinpoints to the people in Congress. I guarantee you one thing: John Jay and the founding fathers will be rolling in their graves. Guarantee you that. Because one thing you have to do, you have to always observe and pay attention. And there's a funny thing too about what happened with the instances too that occurred with what's that? Excuse me. I almost did almost like tuned out there for a moment on the whole bombing of Germany, but they didn't bomb the railroad system. And it's a good documentary I've seen. It's called A Hellstorm, and it's like the untold story of the German genocide in Germany. Very powerful, and it was interesting about the historian, the person who did the book and helped do the movie. It was never be a pro-Nazi film or a National Socialist Workers' Party sympathizer. You have to look at everything across the board on that. And it's a very powerful movie and very disturbing, and has a lot of merit. So he's saying Pope Francis had those good points, but don't just condemn people saying they're not Christian if you own firearms or you support self-defense, because the bottom line is this: he's contradicting his own creed as well. And that's why people question him as a Jesuit pope, another globalist bellboy, as far as I'm concerned, based on his actions. And another thing I'm going to add on there too, to the link, will be the 6 things Americans should know about the Second Amendment. And they have stuff on here about inalienable rights, Torah, Exodus 22 verses 2, of course, the Roman Catholic doctrine, actually citing and quoting from Thomas Aquinas, which is in there, which I already read that to you, and Protestant doctrine, so you can look it up yourselves. You can study this thing. Very educational. I'm going to add that with this title, and you could make your own judgment. Okay. All right. Next article I'm going to be addressing came from Counter Current News, and it's entitled "Disturbing Video Shows Cop Threatened to Lock Up College Kids for Handing Out Pocket Constitutions." This is in a village called Glen Ellen, Illinois. It says here, an infuriating video. Two college students at College of DuPage, a public university, were on campus exercising their First Amendment rights by passing out pocket constitutions and flyers that read "America is a free speech zone" when approached a police officer and threatened when approached by a police officer and threatened with arrest. Filmed ironically only one day after Constitution Day, the 18th. The footage showed the officer infringe on the students' right to freely express their political opinions by threatening to kidnap and throw them in a cage, claiming they are soliciting. The officer tells the students that you need to get a permit and that they can't just do whatever you want. "You can't do it out here, otherwise I'm going to have to lock you up," the officer told the men. Wow. Show his true manhood. Another Uncle Tom with a badge. And I will continue. Engaging the cop, one of them asked, "What are the rules for doing this kind of stuff on campus?" It says here, "You go to the student life office and they give you a permit to do so," the officer replied. The obvious absurdity of having to get a permit to exercise your First Amendment rights speaks to the administrative decimation of liberty. Creating administrative rules which impedes America's free speech rights by limiting a student's ability to freely express their thoughts and ideas on campus seems patently offensive to the idea of freedom. The seemingly constitutionally illiterate officer attempts to explain that if they didn't require a permit, people will line up doing the same thing with different viewpoints, as if that were a bad thing. "You can't have everybody out here doing this, otherwise you see stuff lined up all along here, everybody have their different view and a point of view, so you can't do that," the police officer said. At this point, Kara Hamilton, a representative with Turning Point USA who accompanied the students, interrupts the officer. So like free speech, Hamilton interjects. The officer responded by attempting to equivocate, telling her he's not stopping their free speech, but they aren't allowed to solicit. And I will continue on here. "It is not free speech, ma'am. Nobody's stopping you from free speech, but you can't solicit. Out here," the officer said, to which one of the students quickly responds, What are we soliciting?" The officer then goes full tyrant, telling them that they are soliciting their opinions, which require a permit. Can this man deserve a "I Love Malte" sung button and a penile microphone at the same time? And it says, and I continue, "You're soliciting your opinions, you need to go get a permit," the cop said. See what the cop did there? He attempts to equate their exercising out of their First Amendment rights with solicitation when it's very clear the students are simply expressing their political thoughts, ideas, and beliefs. The fact is that a cops act as if campus being a marketable for differing ideas, viewpoints, and perspectives in some way offensive and something that isn't wanted by the college, would seem to be an indicative of a growing homogenization of thought on college campuses. In case you haven't been paying attention, the permit to engage in a political speech, a handout literature on a public college campus is the Constitution. This blatant attempt at usurping political speech cannot be allowed to stand. The fascist attempt on far too many campuses nationwide, universities unreasonably restricted students' expressive activities through the creation of so-called free speech zones. Please share this important story. This is an article by J. Semropoulos, free Thought Project, and it's a Don't Comply. So, and I have to agree on that. He's absolutely correct. This is nothing more than a total farce, and this campus goofball, and I say that politely, he's one of those guys that he's like, he looks like Al Bundy, of course, more of a pathetic Al Bundy, like I almost have his, like, hand in his shirt, like a left hand in his shirt, probably covering his ring. I'm just wondering if his wife wore the pants to the house. I don't know. I'm just saying that allegedly. It is very unacceptable from this man. I'm just wondering, did he ever became a real police officer, or what happened was he failed basic training and have him just be a parking enforcer before he became a campus cop. I had experiences like that one time, handing out jury notification Slim Jims in front of a gun show at the Wilmore Auditorium in Fort Lauderdale, and the same they call these reservists. Oh, you're soliciting. I just laughed at him. I'm going to take you to jail. I'm like thinking, yeah, show your real manhood, right? I'm proud. I'm just wondering, if the guy has kids. Oh, yeah, I did my duty. I arrested people for soliciting. And they don't even have a damn clue what that is. I got a question for the college, the Page College. What the hell you think you are? Trying to harass people for exercising their free speech. And you want to know what soliciting means in that county? Or, in DuPage County? Because what happened was there's a town, Glen Ellen. It's only a village. So I'm going to look. I've just looked through, did a little thing on munico.com, which I'm going to add it to the link. And this is what they have on Chapter 24, Peddlers and Solicitors. Okay? And it's Article 1, public peddling and soliciting. And the definition for solicitor, which is paragraph 2, so it's 24-1 definition is paragraph 2, solicitor, any person who, without having a specific place of business in the county, is engaged in the business of calling from house to house and soliciting orders for any kinds of goods, wares, merchandise, or services, but shall not, as used herein, include any person who solicits among the inhabitants of the county support for any religious, charitable, or educational organization, but shall include any person who solicits subscriptions for any daily, weekly, or other periodical or non-periodical organization. So, what does that mean? Business. They're not selling anything. Okay? And that's why this officer's a creep, as far as I'm concerned. Alright? And they have thing on county's policy on soliciting. 24-4 says here is hereby declared to the policy of the governing body of the county, the occupant or occupants of the residences of any not within the corporate limits of a municipality shall make the determination of whether solicitors shall be or shall not be invited to their respective residence. So they're trying to play this little game on the whole soliciting. So, and they tell you everything here about soliciting, which it doesn't coexist on what they're doing. Handing out information is more of a hand billing. They're giving it out for free. There's no money. So you're gonna tell them they're soliciting, Officer Yahoo? Please. You know what? You're just another yes boy or another Uncle Tom. You go, okay, boss. You're one of those guys, they say bend over, you go, how far, sir? How far, boss? That's all I have to say. You're just another field peasant with a badge. And you know what? That's a real damn shame. You are not peace officer material. Okay? And if he gets offended, who the hell cares? So I'm gonna add the whole thing on soliciting to on my footnotes on this area. And here's another thing too about the so-called policy. How does that supersede not just the U.S. Constitution, but the Illinois Constitution? I mean, we'll look at the Illinois Constitution, Article 1, Child Bill of Rights. Section 1 reads, inherited and inalienable rights. All men are by nature free and independent and have certain inherited and inalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights and the protection of property, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Okay, so we will keep on going down here to Section 4, freedom of speech. It says here, all persons may speak, write, and publish freely, being responsible for the abuse of that liberty. In trials, liable, both civil and criminal, the truth, when published, with good motives and for justifiable ends, shall be a sufficient defense. And we'll hit Section 5, right to assemble and petition. The people have the right to assemble in a peaceable manner to consult the common good, to make known their opinions to their representatives, and to apply for redress of grievances. So you know what? To that officer and the DuPage College and their pathetic police department, your rhetoric and presentation towards those students are unacceptable, null and void. And you know what's going to happen? You can blow back in your faces, or they can file Title 42, U.S. Code, Section 1983. And I already probably talked about that a few times. People could take the initiative and look it up yourselves. You'd be surprised. You'd be not surprised, but intrigued that things can be done. So you know what? I recommend that college, the DuPage College, and him with that police department needs to write a written apology. And to them, it has to be an open letter to the college, to the press, and even at the county meeting. And hey, if you folks really want to bust their chops, I'm gonna add the whole thing on the police department's phone numbers, police department dispatch, student resource center. You can dial 603-942-2000 and ask them, how come you are harassing college students on their rights to free speech, guaranteed not under the U.S. Constitution, but Illinois Constitution. And as far as I'm concerned, your so-called policy is invalid, null, and void. So that's how I have to look at it, my friends. And I will add the College of DuPage in Glenville, Illinois. I'm going to add it to my footnotes as well. So you know what? They haven't commented because you know why? They know other people should ask them about it. They haven't commented because they know they're maybe in deep crap. It can blow back in their face. And one thing I could tell you too. I remember in 2008, we went to a rally. A lot of Ron Paul supporters were there, and we were scoping out the facility, and they had people protesting from the firefighters and all that behind on the baseball field. They wouldn't let them on the public sidewalk, and we said, you know what? This college, which was actually Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton, was publicly funded. We challenged it. It got resolved, and we won. We did it right on their sidewalk by the theater they were debating. And you know what? We accomplished something. So don't be afraid. Take action. Remember, that conquers fear. So, to people in Illinois, the land of Lincoln, call out these yahoos and know-it-alls. And even if you know this officer and that little assistant or sidekick, you tell them how come you're supporting tyranny. And what's their excuse? Hopefully they'll man up and said, we made a mistake. And they should repent. All right. Next one here came from this article. Now the endbegins.com. It's entitled, "A Growing Number Now Believe California's Drought is a Government Conspiracy." It's written by Jeffrey Grider. And it says here, there's a growing underground movement of people who believe California's drought is part of a government conspiracy instead of a naturally occurring event from lack of rain during the last 4 years. The movement's leader, Dane Whittington, says he's putting his life on the line to reveal the truth that will shake society to its core. From the outside, it is clear the hundreds showing up beat to a different drum, but stepping inside a packed Reading auditorium is like walking to another world. Outlandish ideas like weather warfare and climate engineering, in other words, weather control, are accepted as basic facts. Climate engineering is the single arrest assault on the environment ever launched by humanity, without question, he says. Wingington, the land researcher for Geoengineering Watch, isn't sounding the alarm. It is a responsibility. It is not an option. It is an obligation, he said. His group's gaining more attention. More than 1,000 people showed up in Reading from across the country. The panel includes a former California Fish and Game biologist, a former U.S. Forest Service biologist, and a U.S. Navy veteran. It says here, HAARP control chemtrails are to blame, says Wayington. He claims grainy, shaky video is part of a mountain of evidence showing a shadowy government forces are using planes to secretly spray fine particles of heavy metals like aluminum into the sky. The purpose, they believe, is to block some of the sun's direct rays from reaching the earth in a desperate attempt to slow global warming. It's interesting because I used to see in Fort Lauderdale, I seen them spraying like 5:30 in the morning, almost dawn was coming out, breaking of dawn. I seen it happen a great amount of times in front of my eyes, so I have to really attest to that. And as I continue here, the list of corroborating material we have is immense, including lab tests that prove the same elements named in geoengineering patents. Aluminum, barium, and other heavy metals are raining down on us with massive quantities, he said. If you're skeptical, this won't help. He claimed the spraying is happening off the coast of California comes with an incredibly serious side effect. The heavy metal particles are blocking rainfall, effectively steering California somewhere else. U.S. Air Force admits using HAARP for weather modification and defense hearing. Seems like the idea of controlling the weather is not so crazy after all. In fact, that's exactly what HAARP was set up and created to do. In other words, climate engineering, they say, is to blame for the harshest drought in California's history. Nobody has a right to do this. Nobody has a right to play God with the weather, he said, is what reporter says. You're talking about weather control? Whittington goes, yes, we are. And I'll just continue on. You know that sounds crazy to an outsider. This sounds impossible. It sounds like science fiction. You can't interfere with the climate system, putting aerosols, fine particles, into the atmosphere without affecting the rain. Can't do it. What are you saying? That this drought is being directly caused? There is no question. Connection is inarguable. Kaya the Paul U is a UC Davis professor of atmospheric science and biometeorology with a degree from MIT and Yale. I would find it more likely, I'm not saying it's actually happening, but it's more likely that there are extraterrestrial visits to the Earth, he laughs, than this kind of thing happening, he said. I don't know in my field who believes that. So I said, understand how HARP works and how it began. This is really a good video for understanding how HARP was started and how to use it to control and change the weather around us. The idea of climate change is out there, but actually doing it is another matter, he says. Civilian planes and most military aircraft can't fly high enough to make it feasible. He says the contrails people see behind planes are essentially ice clouds forming, and it's perfectly normal. It is just natural occurrence of combustion. Water is one of the byproducts of combustion, he says. The video from Winnington appears to show a spray between the contrails. The professor says it looks like a rare issue involving pressure variations that cause a trail to form behind the wing and not just the engine's exhaust. But Winnington is used to skeptics. He once was one. Talk is cheap for those who haven't investigated. I didn't want to believe this either, he said. His background is in solar power, but he started investigating on his own about a decade ago after becoming suspicious. Something was partially blocking the sun's energy from reaching his solar home. He decided to go public. Alright, you see here. California drought update, April 19, 2015. 5 proofs of HARP created drought. I cannot do this. It's the last thing I ever want to do. I am not a political person. I'm not an activist. I'm simply a father that wants his children to have a future, he said. His group is gaining more attention. More than 1,000 people showed up in Redding across the country. The panel included a former California fish and game biologist, a former U.S. Forest Service biologist, and a U.S. Navy veteran. I've spoken to NOAA scientists face-to-face who've told me off the record they know this is going on, but they're afraid to speak out because they have no First Amendment protection. I've been at the field with USDA soil scientists. Same. I've been told by congressional representatives. Same, he said. The underground movement has more than a share of critics, including scientists who dismiss the weather control claims as pseudoscience and conspiracy theory talk without reliable evidence. Negative things we like to find reasons for, and conspiracy theories are one of the ways to try and find a reason for it. When we don't fully understand what's going on, Kia the Paul Yu said, Winnington is 100% certain climate engineering is happening and is causing California's drought. The truth, he says, will cause a global shockwave. This data back this up. I have already bet my life on facts, and again, those who doubt this is going on, those who want to deny, those protecting their paychecks and pensions by denying it, will not be able to much longer. The damage is too cataclysmic. There will be no hiding this issue much longer, he said. And that's the source on there, source X. So, Jeffrey Grider, it's good because things are happening. And if I'm correct, this is based out of St. Augustine? Let me see here. Okay, St. Augustine, great. St. Augustine, Florida, oldest city in America. But it's happening a lot. I've seen it myself on the spraying, and of course you can check out the videos you can check out. You probably go to YouTube or just engine search it. What on earth they're spraying, or what in the world is spraying. You should definitely check that out. It's very powerful stuff. And watch, my friends, in a period of time, this is gonna backfire on them completely. So like I tell folks, spread this message, ask questions, study, study the scientific aspect. And what happened was California's drought is, if this is the case, which I'm not surprised, there's a lot of accusations in here as well. It's going to really backfire. Even the state of California should be getting involved in this, including the bald-headed geek I'm not crazy about, Jerry Brown. If you really care about your state, you should talk to these individuals. They're not a bunch of quacks, and Dane Whittington isn't some yahoo, okay? So, people in California need to get their act together, because what's going to happen, it may go further, and they're going to try to use Mother Nature and all that fiasco. All right. Next one here. A friend of mine, a Facebook pen pal, sent this on her page, and from TalkingPointsMemo.com. And it's entitled "Chicago State TV Station Wishes a Jew a Happy Young Conform with Nazi Emblem." It's by Catherine Kruger, and it says here, a Chicago television station made a truly unfortunate art choice to accompany a segment of the Jewish high holidays on yesterday. The yellow Star of David that Jews were legally required to wear during the Holocaust. The stock photo was first flagged by a Chicago editor who posted a screenshot of the WGN news broadcast. And Mark Karlinski on his Twitter says, "Holy crap!" at WGN News. This is your stock photo for a Jewish holiday? Nobody thought that's a bad choice of photo? So obvious. It says here, the station responded to apologize for the art choice about 30 minutes later and said in a tweet the image was inadvertently used. So Mark Kalinsky wrote to them on WGN TV's tweeted, "We are truly sorry for inadvertently using an offensive image in our story. We apologize and deeply regret the error." In a statement posted online, the station said the picture came from its image bank and they failed to recognize that image was an offensive Nazi symbol. "We are extremely embarrassed and we deeply apologize to our viewers and to the Jewish community for this mistake." The WGN statement, "Ignorance is not an excuse." The station was also taking apologies to its viewers out of public sphere, with Jay Loynes, news director, directing individuals users to direct message WGN's accounts. European Jews were legally required to wear the yellow badge on their clothing beginning after Kristallnacht, which is on the night of glass, in November 1938, but an anti-Semitic practice of forcing Jewish citizens to don an identified badge dates back to the 13th century. Yeah, that's when I saw this, I'm like, what? On Yom Kippur, you gotta use that symbol? You gotta, folks. One thing that's why I tell everybody, with all due respect, study history. And you got the internet, you got the internet, you're gonna use that. I'm gonna try something here, folks. I want to try something about Yom Kippur. Hopefully I'll spell it correctly. Now you can smack me later. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna do that right now. Yom Kippur. And let's see what they have to say, because and there were plenty of photos for Yom Kippur. Okay? I don't know why they had to use the Jude of what happened to them in Germany. Give me a break. Wow. I wish everyone in the community would have a happy Yom Kippur. I think it starts tonight or happens, but you have a great Yom Kippur. But I'm just mind boggled, And one person made a claim that they think it was intentional. I don't know, but I can say it was downright careless. I can say stupidity, but downright careless. I could probably use this stupidity in good faith. But one thing I said, I didn't have to use that for Yom Kippur. Good grief! That's how you're gonna study. That's how these people are gonna educate themselves. What kind of history books they have? Coloring books? Please. But like I said, they made their repentance. And it's WGN, so I'm just wondering how's it going to affect them. People going to forget? Or they gotta go after them. All right. Finally, to all my friends in Florida, they have looks like this gentleman named Representative Clovis Watson Jr., District 20, a Democrat from District 20, have authored a bill called HB 4017 entitled Use of Deadly Force in Defense of a Person. And he has here repeals provisions relating to home protection and use of deadly force, which creates presumption of fear and death or great bodily harm in certain circumstances, and provide that person has no duty to retreat and has a right to stand his or her ground and meet force with force, and in certain circumstances confirms provisions. He just filed it on the 22nd at 9:46 a.m. And there's a related bill for that on use of force. And he's trying to, and according to this statutes, 776.013, 012, 032, and 790.15 has been filed. So let's just hit the original file version. Then I'll give you my intake. Oh, in a moment. It says here, a bill entitled An Act Relating to the Use of Deadly Force in Defense of a Person, repealing Statute 776.013, Florida statute relating to the home protection and the use of deadly force, which created a presumption of fear of death or great bodily harm in certain circumstances, and provided that a person has no duty to retreat and has a right to stand on his or her ground and meet force with force in certain circumstances, amending statutes 776.012, .032, and 790.15, confirming provisions provided an effective date. And I'm just going to proceed here. Be it enacted by the legislature of the state of Florida, Section 776.013 Florida statute is repealed. Section 2, 776.012 Florida statutes is amended to read the use of force in defense of a person. And it says here, 1. A person is justified in using or threatening to use of force, except deadly force, except another when and to the extent that the person reasonably believes that such conduct is necessary to defend himself or herself, or against another against the other's imminent use of unlawful force. So he did cross that a lot. Did a lot of crossings about not having the duty to retreat or threatening to use. So he did cross a lot of those out. And it says here, Section 3, Subsection 1 of Section 776.032, Florida statute is amended to read 776.032, immunity from criminal prosecution and civil action for justifiable use or threatened use of force. 1. A person who uses or threatens to use of force as permitted in 776.012, he crossed out 776.013, so he crossed that out, and he kept 776.031. Is justified such conduct is immune from criminal prosecution and civil action to use threatened use of such force by a person or personal representative of heirs of that person against the whom the force was used or threatened, unless the person against whom force was used or threatened is a law enforcement officer as defined in Statute 943.10, subsection 14, who is acting in the performance of his or her official duties, and the officer identified himself or himself in accordance with any applicable law, or the person using the threatened use of force knew reasonably should have known that the person was a law enforcement officer as used this subsection. And the term criminal prosecution includes arresting, detaining in custody, and charging or prosecuting the defendant. Section 4, subsection 1, Section 790.15, Florida statute is amended to read: discharging firearm in public or residential property. 1. Except as provided in subsection 2 or subsection 3, any person who knowingly discharges a firearm in any public place or in the right-of-way of a paved public road, highway, or street, who knowingly discharges any firearm over the right-of-way of any paved public road, highway, or street, or over any occupied premises, who recklessly or negligently discharges a firearm outdoor on any property used primarily as a site of dwelling, as defined, which he crossed out, he's stricken as defined in statute 776.013, so he crossed that out, okay? Or zoned exclusively for residential use, commits a misdemeanor of the first degree, punishable as provided in section 775.082 or statute 775.083. This section does not apply to a person lawfully defending life of property or performing official duties requiring the discharge of a firearm, or a person discharging a firearm on public roads, property, or properties expressly approved for hunting by the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission of Florida Forest Service. And he underlined this as an addition now, okay? As used in this subsection, the term dwelling means a building or conveyance of any kind, including an attached porch, whether the building or conveyance is temporary or permanent, mobile or immobile, which has a roof over it, including a tent. It is designed to be occupied by the people lodging therein at night. This, in section 5, this act shall take effect upon becoming law. And I have to say this. I don't know what the hell is House Representative Mr. Watson Jr. is thinking. You mean if someone comes in my house, I can't use deadly force uninvited, especially at night? I may have to run away? Let me tell you something, sir. This has been in the books for a long, long time. Way before you and I were born. And you call yourself a minister? Man. Contradicting your faith as well. Here's the thing. On Stand Your Ground. It was never a racist issue. In some of the case, they exploit the whole George Zimmerman case with Trayvon Martin. They try to say stand your ground. He never pleaded for that. And of course, in the stand your ground, there's a special hearing on it. So if a person can make a motion to stand your ground, you have to have merit. And one thing about that standing your ground, according to Tampa Bay Times, on Stand Your Ground, you can just type it in there. I'm not going to add it to my footnotes, but you can type it in there. You can read it yourself. The African American community in Florida benefit the most. It's not just whites and blacks. It's not like that at all. It's in fighting crime in general. And so this is the whole thing. It's a violation of Article 1, Section 2 of our state constitution. As it says here, basic rights. All persons, female and male alike, are equal before the law and have inalienable rights, among which they are the right to enjoy and defend life, liberty, to pursue happiness, to be awarded for industry, and to acquire, possess, and protect property, except that the ownership, inheritance, disposition, and possession of real property by aliens ineligible for citizenship may be regulated or prohibited by law. No person shall be deprived of any right because of race, religion, national origin, or physical disability. So, you can't someone defend their property? Castle Doctrine? It's guaranteed under our basic rights, Mr. Watson. So, your bill is invalid, null and void. And I have another question. Are the police obligated to protect a person? If so, I dare you, bring it up. It has to have meritable documentation, because I know one thing. Florida Statute 768.28, entitled Sovereign Immunity and Tort Liability, the police or any public employee are not cannot be sued. In other words, I'm just paraphrasing. So in other hands, the police aren't obligated to protect us. You can look that up, and Wong versus the City of Miami in 1970, which the Florida Supreme Court said the same thing. Just look it up, my friends. And this is interesting because let's just see what this guy's record is. But I'm going to add all that to my footnotes, including Clovis Watson Jr. And he's a resident of Volusia. He has 5 sons. Okay, very nice. And he was born on September 30th, 58. And he's a Baptist. Wow. He should talk to Charles Van Vick, how he defended the church against 5 terrorists. And some of his affiliations are interested too. I'm not going to go through a whole lot, but something I just get a big kick out of is one of them, the Lions Club, okay. And Police Executive Council, past Board of Directors. Juvenile Justice Council, past Board of Directors. Police Executive Training Committee. That's just one of his affiliations. Something to think about, my friends. And of course, he has stuff from the Black Caucus, Florida Farm Bureau, which is nice, but he's Gainesville Lodge of Fraternal Order Police Administrator of the Year Award. That's just one of his highlights. Do I see some plain closed bargains, I would say. So yeah, you can add all that in there on Watson. So I'm going to keep that link. But I am going to write a nice little letter on it for sure. And that's really it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to this episode. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media network. If you have any questions, comments, criticisms, love letters, hate letters, etc., including sending me information that could be interesting, please use your correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, send your comments to iHeartRadio, or YouTube. In addition, you can email me at LokiLuck3, that's the number 3 altogether, at gmail.com. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.